I was really on a roll, you guys. I was saying so many things so passionately. So passionately. I was feeling passion. And I talked about how successful you are. And I talked about what we're going to be talking about in the podcast today. And I talked about the guests that we have coming on. Oh my God, I was so passionate and full of so much. So much. I know. Danny, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to go right back to all of you. I heard. Thank you. Oh my God, Danny, I got it. You guys are so good. Okay, I'm going to message all of you. Sound is back. Okay. All right. Thank you. You guys are epic. I love you. I'll be here all week with sound. Yeah. Okay. We're going to edit that part out. Yep. We can't hear you. Listen, here's the thing. You don't need to hear me. This is a lesson on lip reading. Didn't you guys know this is the stop shitting all over yourself about learning how to lip read? Now, I don't know how to lip read, but I felt like it was important for you to know how to do that. Yeah. Okay. We're just going to start this again. Check the sound. Oh my God, and it was so good. Okay, we're gonna start again. Oh my God, I love my life right now. Seriously, I have to edit that out. Danny, you're amazing. I love you, Danny. I know. Thank you. I'm back. All right. I'm also hot as fuck right now. Okay, because all right. I am so into it. I know, I'm so into it. I know YouTube isn't running. I actually talked about that at the beginning. Okay, so let's start at the beginning again. Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you. I had so many great things that I talked about. We're going to talk about them again. All right. Hello. This is the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast, which is where we come to not shit all over yourself, especially when you forgot to turn on the microphone, which is also classic Manessa. So you'd think that by now I would know this. However, I was so excited about the fact that I feel like my visuals are so good today, like so good. Like I feel like I got my lighting perfect. I've got everything exactly where I want it to be. So that's great. I realize YouTube isn't working. It's not allowing me to connect. There's some sort of validation issue that's happening, even though it's like clearly it's allowing me to see it. It's allowing me to do a lot. I don't know what the problem is with YouTube. Clearly there is something messed up. So I think I need to disconnect everything and reconnect it. That's okay. We're just going to do Facebook today because as I said, we're moving away from the live version of this podcast. So, we're moving into a space where the live version of this podcast will only be broadcast in Patreon and to my Patreon subscribers. The non-live version, the recorded version, will drop here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. So it's going to drop on Wednesdays on Facebook and on YouTube, but it's not going to be live. You guys who are part of the Patreon will be able to join live. And then what we're going to do is I'm probably going to be doing it on Zoom so that we can have a Q&A afterwards and we can talk about it. So, because I think that would be a really exciting way of doing it. My guests are still going to be, pre-recorded. I'm not going to do that live. Why? Thank you. I feel fantastic. And actually that's what I wanted to talk about today. So, one of the things no, it's not. I thought that was a whale. I was like, is that a whale? No, it's not a whale. Do you know where we can find? That's not whale. That's upset stomach. Okay. So, all right. So I was looking at a video of myself from a few years ago. And what I saw was really interesting because I saw someone who was successful, someone who was doing the things that she wanted to be doing, but also a very unhappy person. I saw a very unfulfilled person, someone who had a goal for how she wanted to feel, but also was confused, figuring it out, but had also figured quite a few things out. I see someone who is on her journey, right, to figuring out who they are. Okay. Right now, and when I see that person, I see someone lacking in confidence, with someone with the skills, someone with the knowledge, with the abilities, someone with the capacity to learn and grow, but who lacked confidence in every way, right? Like zero confidence in themselves, zero confidence in their skill sets, even though they were doing all the things that they were supposed to be doing and making the difference and the impact, they didn't believe that they were making an impact. And they kept saying, one day I want to make an impact. One day I want to make an impact. One day, right? As if it wasn't already happening. Over the last couple of years, I've worked really hard on my mindset using some very specific starting points and specific guidelines. And I'm able to codify those guidelines now because I set them because I set them up. But at the time, I didn't realize what I was setting up, right? I have them codified now to share with you, but at the time I didn't. But it was a journey, right? And so I want to remind anyone who is feeling a lack of confidence, low self-esteem, despondent, like you're not good enough, like you have to constantly be working, like you're not successful. I want to remind you of two things. First is that you are successful. You are 100% successful. You are here. You are successful. And why is that? Because you have lived your life to date. You are alive. You are well. You are capable. You've developed amazing skill sets. You've had incredible experiences. You are so much stronger now than you were before. You have been building a foundation under you. Even if you don't know that that's what you've been doing, you have been doing a lot of this. And I know this because I've worked with thousands of business owners and I've seen the same thing with all of them. They don't realize the strength of the foundation that they're building under themselves. They don't realize the power of the skill sets that they have. They don't realize the sheer determination, intelligence, capacity for problem solving, and ability and desire to succeed that it required for them to simply get to where they're at right now, right? So the first thing that I want you to really internalize is the fact that you are already successful, but you have been moving the goalpost for yourself over and over and over and over again. And so you've not really given yourself the permission to do a victory lap and sit and relax and say, oh, I did it. None of us have. Like, none of us have. And a lot of this comes from trauma. Absolutely, a lot of this comes from trauma. Mine 100% did. And trauma can take form in many different ways. So I'm not going to dig deep into the trauma situation because everyone's trauma looks different. But it usually, a lot of that comes from a trauma response, or it comes from a lifetime of being outside of the societal norm, right? So you are black, you are brown, you are neurodivergent, you are disabled, you are chronically ill, you have a mental illness, right? There are so many reasons. Oh, you're a mom who has gone back to school. You're a mom who's doing something different with their lives. You're a mom who decided to become a dad. You are LGBTQ. These are people who, you are low income. You have been homeless at some point in your life. You've had food insecurity, right? These are all things that put us in a place where we tend to not have a lot of self-confidence. We tend to question ourselves. We tend to doubt ourselves because society has consistently tried to oppress that idea upon us that we are less than and have to work harder to achieve. It is extremely, extremely challenging to work through those things. For me, what I found in terms of building my success was first recognizing that I was already successful. The second thing for me to recognize was that there is a path from feeling that way to feeling successful, like to actually feeling successful, to feeling like you can go slowly and be at pace, right? To where you feel like I don't have to rush because there's plenty of time. I don't have to prove myself because my existence and my skill sets are proof enough. The thing that allows you to be calm and peaceful in your confidence so that you don't feel like you're constantly on a treadmill that's going too fast, right? These are all habits that we pick up as business owners, and they are programmed in us long before we become business owners. But when we become business owners, they become amplified, so amplified to where now we're constantly working and feeling like you cannot stop, because if you stop, something terrible will happen. Now, I will be really honest with you. I don't know what that terrible thing is for each of us, but I know the pathway that I went down, which is if I stopped working, then I would lose customers. I would not make any money. If I didn't make any money, how was I going to pay my bills? How was I going to pay my mortgage? If I didn't pay my mortgage, I wasn't going to have a house that I've worked so hard for. Alex would lose faith in me because I wasn't making money and support, saying what I said I was going to do. People will laugh at me because I don't know what I'm doing. They'll be like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. She said she could do all these things, but she can't. Then I'm going to lose the house because we can't afford to pay for it. And then we're going to be homeless. And what will happen to my dogs? This is the pathway that I have gone down many, many, many times before. To get myself through that pathway, I had to reprogram myself out of what society had traditionally told me was the right way to be. And I came up with a code of living for myself, right? I read this book called The 4 Agreements. And The 4 Agreements, which is an amazing, amazing book, is a great book and talks about the agreements that we make with ourselves versus the agreements that we make with society. And how a lot of the agreements we make with society, right, about the way we're supposed to behave, how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to dress, what you're supposed to say, when you're supposed to show up, are agreements that were made between people in societies long before we were even born. And then as we grew up, we were socialized into understanding the things that you do and the things that you don't do. Well, you don't bring your personal life into work. That is sacrosanct. You never bring your personal life into work. Well, until you become a social media manager, and then suddenly you have to bring your personal life into work. And now that rule has changed. So a rule that we thought was so set in stone that it was immutable and unchangeable is changeable under the right set of circumstances. Or, for example, before COVID, nobody could work from home. Oh my God, I remember people saying there was absolutely no way that was ever going to happen. It's such a bad idea. People could never get done. People are so lazy. They would never be able to do anything. They need to be able to have somebody looking over their shoulders. So many things people would say about people who work from home. And I know this because I fought for it really hard back in the early 2000s when it wasn't something that people were doing. And then COVID comes and suddenly that rule is out the door and we're all able to work from home and everything is fine, right? In terms of the ability to work from home. In fact, it's made a lot of people's lives better. And that made me realize that rules are not rules. Rules are just rules until someone decides that they're not rules anymore and you can change them. And everybody else just keeps deciding that they're going to change the rules. Well, why can't I decide that I'm going to change the rules for myself? So instead of living my life based off of a code that someone else taught me, that came from somewhere else, I had to figure out for myself, what is my life code? What do I want to live by? Now, I started this a couple years ago, and it started in writing a book. I wrote the whole book. It's a terrible book. I'm never going to publish it. It's awful. I finished it. It's just a lot of word vomit. I'm all over the place. I hadn't yet figured out what it was that I was trying to articulate. But over the last that book turned out to be the thing that set me in the direction, and then I put it away. And then over the next couple of years, from 2019 to today, I worked on figuring out what my agreements and my belief systems were for myself, the code that I live by. And the code that I live by has allowed me to be happy and fulfilled every day, regardless of what kind of day it is. You can have a day where the stove goes out. And it's still a beautiful day. It's still a fulfilling day because it doesn't define your day. Because you look at the metrics of your life differently than based off of how much you produce, right? How much have I done? How much have I completed? What tasks have I crossed off my list? For so many years, that has been my entire philosophy on life. It has been workaholic. You work until you're sick. However much you produce, you need to continue to produce, have value to people, go serve someone else. It was always about doing, and I could never do enough. I always had to do more. And that's how I valued myself. Through this reflection and mindfulness and thinking about these ideas, which I'm going to share with you in no particular order, I have found myself happier in general, more fulfilled in general, and generally also I have a more lucrative life. So I want to offer you what I've learned. It may not apply to you exactly, but I want to share it with you as a guideline for maybe something that you might hear and be like, oh, you know what? I've been thinking about this same thing, and I want to figure out how to apply this in my own life. Or I like this idea, but I don't think it's going to work for me like this. I'm going to make it work for me like that. Or this gives me an idea. I'm not using this idea that she has, but I want to use this. It plants a seed for something else that I want to do. The goal is to give you anything that is outside the box of thinking that we have all been in and socialized into for the last 40 something years. Okay. All right. So these are my rules, my code that I live by. Okay. So my first code is be honest in all things. All right. This I've been doing for many, many years. I don't lie. I never lie. And if I lie and by accident, and like I say something to you and it turns out to be a lie later, I will come back to you, even if you will never know it. And I will tell you what the truth was and apologize for lying to you. For me, deception is the greatest form of cuckoldry that you could possibly imagine. It is playing someone for a fool. It is assuming that you can put one over on them, and it doesn't make people feel good. It's also impossible to keep track of lies. It really is. It's just impossible to keep track of lies. You lie here, you lie there. You don't know what your answer, you just don't know whether you told a lie there. How are you going to keep up with the lies that you've told? These are challenging things to keep up with when you lie. Third, it doesn't feel good when I lie. Okay, it doesn't feel good when I lie. It makes me feel like I have done something incorrect based off of my personal code. Now, that doesn't mean that, when I was talking to someone the other day, she was telling me about how, she, her girlfriend told her to call out sick because she didn't want to go to work, right? Because she wasn't sick. She wasn't feeling good, right? And she felt bad about it because she said, I'm not sick. I feel fine. And I'm like, I was like, do you really feel fine? And the truth is, she wasn't fine. She was emotionally really sick. She was having a flashback. She was having trauma issues. Like, there was a lot of shit that was going on, right? And her girlfriend said that this is what she should do. And she said, but that's lying. And I said, well, okay, listen. I was like, I understand why you may think it's lying. I was like, but you are emotionally sick right now. It is creating physical hardship for you. Your body is telling you that you need rest. Your body is telling you that it's hurting and it's asking you to give it some love. Listen to your body and tell your boss that you're sick and can't come in. You don't have to tell her why you're sick. You don't have to tell her the details of your illness. You just tell her that you are sick and that you can't come in. It is not a lie because you are sick. So sometimes the truth is a matter of perspective. And that is really, really important to recognize, is that the truth is a spectrum sometimes. If you and I have an argument, you're going to have your truth, I'm going to have my truth. And there are various spectrums in the middle where we can meet and talk about what we are experiencing to find a truth between the two of us that we can agree upon. But a lot of people who are very black and white really, really, really struggle with this idea that truth is a spectrum and that outright lying is not necessarily something that I want to do. And that a white lie counts as a lie, but that you have to really think through and give yourself the time to consider what it is that you're saying, because it's entirely possible that what you're sharing is the truth. You just don't know it yet, right? So the intention is to be honest in all things as best as you can, because sometimes you're not going to know that you're lying. It is what it is. So you have to do the best that you can to be honest in all things. I absorbed this from the Qowat Malat in Star Trek. So they are a Romulan sect who believe in the philosophy of absolute candor. And I just fell in love with that idea. I was like, I was always honest, but for me, having it as part of my life philosophy seemed very appropriate. So that became my first life philosophy, is be honest in all things. Second is to trust in yourself implicitly. Actually, trust in yourself implicitly, okay? You have made it this far in life. You have literally made it this far. You are alive. You have put one foot in front of the other. You have solved every problem that has come your way. You have overcome challenges. You have seen trauma, and you are still here. Some of the worst things that could happen to people have probably happened to you at some point in time, and you still are here, and you have been alive and vibrant through it. Now, you may have let people outside dull your light. You may have let them tell you that your reality isn't true. You may have been gaslit by someone who abused you. You may have been gaslit by yourself. We can gaslight ourselves very, very easily. It is important to develop and cultivate a trust in yourself, trust in your beliefs, a trust in your foundation, a trust in your skill sets, a trust in your abilities, a trust in you, right? That requires that you develop a relationship with yourself, okay? You can't trust someone that you don't know. So developing a relationship with yourself is really, really important, okay? Because as you develop that relationship with yourself, you will learn to trust yourself more. So for example, I want to tell you ways in which you can reinforce your trust. So yesterday morning, I wasn't feeling well when I woke up. I meditate every morning. Sometimes I meditate for 2 hours. Now, Katie says that's an insane amount of time to meditate, but I explain that it's not really I don't go and sit there and still for 2 hours. I actually just go with the intention of sitting for 20, 30 minutes, but I just get so calm and at peace, and I enjoy the sounds and being alone. I don't want to leave. I stay there because I want to stay. Mostly it's on the weekends. On weekdays, I might get an hour and a half, but I really, really enjoy that time of solitude. Now, yesterday morning, I woke up and my body was just on fire. It was just, ants and bugs, just bleh. And I was so exhausted and fatigued. And I got up and I took the dogs out and my stomach started hurting. And I was like, I'm out. I'm going to bed. I listened to my body. I was like, my body is saying I need rest today. And so I said, I hear you. We're going to go to bed. So I went right back to bed after walking the dogs. And I had a wonderful day yesterday. Wonderful. I didn't feel bad because I slept in late. In fact, I felt really good. And when I looked at myself on the videos that I was on a call yesterday for the book club that we were doing. And I looked at myself and I was like, damn, I look really good today. And everybody else was also saying that I looked really good. And, Danny said I was looking really good today. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And it's not because I did anything special. I haven't put makeup on or I done anything different from any other day. But what I have done is I listened to my body yesterday and I honored its request. And that allowed my body to trust me more. And me to trust my body more because I felt so good afterwards. I realized that taking that break didn't kill me. It didn't destroy my business. Nothing terrible happened. In fact, only good things happened. Trust in yourself and trust when your body tells you, right? When your body tells you that it needs time, give it the time it's asking for without shame, without guilt, without recrimination. You can get this book, Lazyness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devin Price. I highly recommend reading it. We're reading it in the Patreon right now, which you can join at manessa.com/Patreon. But this book helps you to alleviate a lot of the guilt that comes from taking the rest and listening to your body. The next one is cultivate a curiosity about everything. Okay. Be curious about the problems that you're facing. So let's say your ads don't work. Instead of feeling like, oh my God, my ads don't work, that sucks, I'm terrible, I'm not going to make money, and you go down that whole homelessness path that we talked about earlier, instead of doing that, cultivate a curiosity. I wonder why it didn't work. I wonder what would happen if I tried a different graphic. I wonder if my language was the problem, right? I wonder if maybe Facebook ads aren't the right thing for me. Maybe I want to try out TikTok, right? Cultivate a curiosity about things. When you are curious, it takes the anxiety out of it because now you put your mind in problem solving mode. Okay. So now before where you were judging yourself for being a failure, now you are curious about the solution to a problem that gets you excited because as human beings, we are inspired and inflamed with curiosity. There is nothing that gets us going like a good mystery. So when you can change the language from a, oh, this sucks to a, I wonder how, or how can I, or where did this, and create a curiosity about whatever that problem is, it will become more empowering for you because now you're in problem solving mode. This extends to your body as well, right? When something goes wrong for you, I wonder why, I wonder how, I wonder if. Changing it from being, I'm a terrible person, I can't believe I said that to that person, you changing it from, I wonder why I said that. I wonder where that came from. I wonder how I can make sure that I don't do something like that again. I wonder if I should apologize once I figured this out, right? And the tip jar for the should in there, right? Cultivating a language of curiosity is incredibly important because once you start talking in a curious way, the anxiety, the fear, the homelessness fear, it goes away. Now, it takes the time. It's not going to be something that you're going to do it that first day and you're like, oh my God, I cultivated curiosity. Yes, I'm excited. But if you practice it, and that's what all of these things are, by the way, each of the things that I'm sharing with you are not one and dones. These are life philosophies that you practice. The same way if somebody says I'm a very religious person and I've accepted Jesus Christ into my heart and my faith plays a very important role in my life, I'm going to expect or understand that this person practices their faith. They probably go to church, they read the Bible, they pray at night, whatever their particular practices are, they practice it regularly to reinforce that faith because that is how faith is built, is through your practices. These ideas have practices built into them. And in the Patreon and on the Facebook page and in our podcast, we talk about those practices and how to implement them so that you are building that same habit. But this is what will build that faith in yourself, is cultivating these practices. So it's going to be something that you're doing in an ongoing fashion, but it's going to be slow and it's going to be something that creates incremental joy and fulfillment in your life. The next thing is to create more joy around you, okay? Have an intention to create joy through kindness and through love. No matter what the world brings at you, express joy and love. Now, I want to be really clear here. I have suffered trauma. I have been through hell and back. And I'm not saying I love all these people and you're amazing. Thank you so much for hurting me. No, no, no. I have cut people out of my life. I have cut all the toxic people out of my life. I have erected very strong boundaries, which we'll come to that later. I have cultivated a space around me of people who want the best for me and for others, the same way I want the best for them, for myself, and for others. So the goal is to cultivate an environment around yourself where you do not have to fear the people that are in your life. If there are people in your life who you have reason to fear because they are, you never know, they're narcissists and you never know what you're going to get, or you have a terrible relationship with them, or they are abusive, I really want to encourage you to seek out help, get a therapist if you can, but find a way to erect boundaries in your life around those people as much as you can, because that is going to be what protects you. Now, for me, it's simply easier to just cut those people out of my life. So I just cut them out of my life, right? Because that's just something that I do have the capacity for that. And it is something that I recognized was required of me in order for me to move on in a healthy and fulfilled manner. And it's really sad that I had to do it, but life is what it is. And keeping those people in my life would only have served to create further toxicity in my life. And they were not concerned with the toxicity they were bringing. They were only concerned with what I could do for them. So this is a very uneven relationship that I needed to get out of. Okay. So it is really important to recognize that when you fill the world around you, when you filled your world around you with people whose goal is to create good, practice joy, and really not create tension in your life, and who are intentional about that, then for you as well, it becomes easier to create that joy. Be kind to other people because you are not hurting so deeply. A lot of the resentment, the anger, the frustration, the protective walls come up because we have been hurt so deeply. We need to protect ourselves from the dangers that are out there. It is possible to construct a world around you where those dangers aren't there, and where you have boundaries set around yourself for when you go into these spaces that might not be as safe for you as you would like. Which brings me to the next thing of setting boundaries. Boundaries are good things, and they help you and other people know where you stand. One of the most important lessons that I've learned is the lesson of the fence. They did a study a long time ago, and I'm not entirely sure where I have to find the study, but they did a study where they took a bunch of children to a playground and with a teacher, and the playground had no fence around it. And they saw what the kids were going to do. Now the kids, even though there were jungle gyms and there were swings and there were the things to slide down and all kinds of fun stuff, these kids did not play at all. They weren't having any of that. They were just staying really close to the teacher and very fearful. The next day, they brought another set of children to the same playground, same teacher, except this time there was a fence around the playground. And this time, the kids played everywhere. They were crazy. They were running, they were falling, they were skinning their knees. They had the best time ever. And it was because they knew that now that the fence is there, they had safety to play in. So now they felt comfortable expressing themselves in a safe manner. We do not set boundaries around ourselves. And so we are in a space where everything is unsafe. Everything is unsafe because we don't set our boundaries. We don't set boundaries around people who want too much from us. We don't set boundaries around ourselves when we want too much for us. We don't set boundaries around people who mistreat us. We think of boundaries as bad things, as uncomfortable things, because we are so busy trying to make sure that other people are feeling okay and managing other people's emotions that we don't think for a minute what that damage is doing to us. So for me, one of the most important things that I had to learn how to do was to set boundaries so that people would know what lines they can't cross, where they need to go to get help, and what area is my safe space. Now, what's beautiful about this is that the world around me began to change when I set my own boundaries. People who I used to help started to empower themselves more because they realized that I wasn't always going to be there to answer all their questions. People who previously had mistreated me are now gone from my life. They're not even there anymore. And people who had previously pushed against my psychological and emotional boundaries in times of trauma have now recognized the things that I won't talk about because I don't think it's a healthy or safe conversation to be having with them. And I myself feel safe to express myself in my truest and most authentic form because I know that the fence that I have created around myself is a safe one. Now, creating a fence is not easy if you don't know how to do it. So if you're looking for help on that, we can help you out in the Patreon. Again, it's manessa.com/Patreon, and you can learn all about it there. And we can talk about much, much more of these here. I will also be doing podcasts about these topics. More to come on that in a second. Okay. So we talked about being honest in all things, setting boundaries, trusting yourself implicitly, cultivate a curiosity about everything. Allow yourself to feel pleasure without guilt. This is critically important. And I'm not just talking about sexual pleasure, but that's in the box. We do not often feel like we are deserving of pleasure. Whether it's the pleasure of a breeze going across your chest, whether it's the smell of the ocean, I want you to begin to cultivate a belief that you have a right to feel pleasure. And that means pleasure in moments where you're eating chocolate quietly and just, it's delicious chocolate. That means you can eat dinner without having to be working at the same time. You can take pleasure in the bites that you eat. Now, you may take pleasure in, let's say, kayaking, okay? So then when you are kayaking, take the time to take pleasure in the activity. Don't deny yourself that pleasure by thinking of all the things that you need to do later. Then what you're really doing is wasting your time because you're not fully enjoying and experiencing your kayaking adventure. And then when you get back to work, you're going to feel sad because you didn't do that and you still have all this work to do. When you take time for yourself to really experience pleasure, the work that you do is so much more worthwhile because you really feel the reward of the time spent. If you do not allow yourself to feel pleasure, then work doesn't have any meaning. Because then you're just working, and you never get to experience the joy and the pleasure that you are actually doing this work for. Whether it's the pleasure of a vacation, the pleasure of an orgasm, the pleasure of eating good food, it doesn't matter what it is. You are deserving of pleasure, okay? And it doesn't matter who you are. And when you are in that moment, and this is especially, so I'm going to jump into the sex part for a second. If you have not ever experienced pleasure, and that's not something that you even allow yourself to do or think about, I want to strongly encourage you to check out Miss L. She's Miss LX. She is an intimacy coach. She's my intimacy coach. And you can also check out, I'll actually put a link in the show notes to help with that. But that's a really great place to start. Give yourself the experience of pleasure, even if it's by yourself, okay? Pleasure yourself all the time. Got to tell you, I do. It's really fun. Okay. So experiencing pleasure, super important. You're allowed to experience pleasure and you're allowed to sit back and just enjoy it without ever having to think about what you need to do in return or what you need to do next, okay? All right. Do what you say you will do. If you say you're going to show up somewhere, show up somewhere. If you say you're going to help somebody, then help somebody. This is really important because it helps to cultivate trust in yourself. But more important than that, it will allow you to see when you are overcommitting and commit to less. Okay? So this is a two-part lesson. One is do what you say you will and commit to doing less. Because whatever it is that you're committing to doing right now, I promise you, it's too much. I already know you're committing to too much. Commit to less. You will still be loved. You will still be cared for. You will still have value. You are still the most beautiful, unique, and valuable person in this world, even if you do not say yes to everything that comes your way. Start to say no to things that do not fill you with joy, that do not fill you with excitement, that are not in alignment with what you are trying to do. Don't say yes to things because it could, it might, it should. That is a lukewarm yes. If it's not a resounding yes from your inner core, then it's a no. Because your body will tell you whether it wants to do something or not. And go back to lesson 1, right? And 2, be honest in all things. So be honest with yourself about what your body is telling you about what something is good for you or not. And then trust that your body is telling you the truth and act accordingly. When you put these 3 lessons together, now you've got a power lesson. Because now you're going to commit to less things. The things that you do commit to, you're going to be able to show up 100%, and you're going to feel really, really good about how you showed up. You're going to then create a bigger reputation for yourself in these smaller areas, right, that will then actually amplify larger which is way different from trying to do all the things and build an audience this way. But that's really hard to do when you're doing all the things to like 3% and 5% and 20% because you only have so much energy left. So doing what you say you will and committing to doing less are critical aspects of being happy and feeling happier. Okay. Act with intention. And then we have one more after that. Act with intention. Okay. Be intentional about what you do. Don't just do something because it's in front of you, right? Don't just do something because it's an idea someone had. I did that for years. I realized up until probably last year, anytime an idea came up, I would do it simply because it was an idea. Oh, I had this idea. Must be a good one. All right, sure, let's do that. That is absolutely not how it works. You want to make sure that the activities that you're doing each day, the things that you're doing, that you are intentional about them. And that simply means think about whether you really want to be doing them or not. Is it really helping you? Make things fight for the right to be on your to-do list, right? Make it fight. And if it can't justify its existence on your to-do list, then poof, kick it to the curb because it doesn't belong there, right? Be intentional in the things that you do, whatever your intention is, and you will feel so much more gratified at the results because you were doing it with full mind, full body, full intention. And whatever the results are, you will be curious about the outcome. So now the experience that could have previously been incredibly depressing when something doesn't work becomes exciting because you see how you can make something better if it doesn't work. And it changes the way you look at your business because now you're not looking at your business as one excuse after another to why something didn't work because that feels like shit. Instead, you start seeing problems as stepping stones to the ladder of success. Which brings me to my absolute last code for myself, which is accept that there are things that you will never understand, and that's okay. I will never understand why there are people in my life who are abusive. I will never understand why some people just have to be cruel. I will never understand why it feels so good when I reach this drop in my meditation and I can almost feel like I'm connected to the universe. I don't understand what's happening in that moment, but I know something's happening and it's really fucking good and I want to stay there, right? And I've tried to understand it, and I tried and I tried, and then my spirit, my spirit of Izzy said, just be. It's okay. You don't have to understand this. Like, just feel good. Just feel the pleasure. And so I just feel the pleasure now. I don't try to understand why do I feel so good. I just know that in this moment of cosmic connection, I feel good, right? I don't understand why. And that's okay. Do I really want to put my energies into understanding? Like you could study your entire life. For some people, you just have to accept that this is the truth that exists. And for me, the truth that exists is when I connect cosmically with the universe, I feel good. And I accept that. Now, if your job is to understand the why of it, then by all means, go ahead. But there are going to be other things then that you don't understand. It's okay. You don't have to be the expert at everything. You don't have to understand everything about everything. You have to pick the things that you want to understand and understand those things. I am going to make a really, really, the best post ever I'm going to make today about the picture of the predator that I drew. And I drew that picture and I love it. I'm in love with it. But when I show you how I did it, you'll see exactly how some of these practices came into place because I'm not a very good drawer. I can't draw very well, but I can color things in and shade and create an ambiance. I have a vision, an artistic vision. So what I do is I go find frameworks. I got that predator from online and I got the forest from online, and then I made it into this image, and I'm going to share what those images are, and I'm going to share the recording of how I made it so you can see that I realized at some point I don't even like drawing. I like the coloring and the design and the flashes. I like all that part. So I'm going to find things that approximate what I want it to look like, and then I'm going to figure it out from there. I'm not going to sit and take 14 drawing classes to become an expert in drawing. That's not what I want right now. Maybe I'll want it later, but right now I'm having fun doing this, and I want to have fun and enjoy this experience, right? So this is how some of these things play out while you are running your business. Okay, alrighty. So let's see what we missed here. Okay, and then all right. Yeah, Sophia said, if you don't lie, you don't have to remember what you said. Exactly. Oh my God, I was about to take off my shirt. It's so hot in here. My back's sweating. I was like, oh God, it's so hot. I should rip off my shirt. Mental health is health. Exactly. But if you don't have that perspective that mental health is health, then you're going to think that mental health is not your health, and so you should push through it. And think about society's perspective on mental health for so many years, right? Because even though now everybody's in agreement that mental health is actual health, you know, for the 80s and the 90s, what did we made fun of people who had nervous breakdowns. Oh, they just couldn't hack it, right? This is we bring these, let me just shut this. We bring these lessons with us into adulthood, and whether we think of them actively now or not, they're still programmed into us. And we have to be really mindful of what that programming is, especially as we're reprogramming ourselves into whatever image it is we see ourselves being in our ideal place. I grew up in a family that hinted a lot of things and spoke in code often. It was so frustrating. As a teenager, I vowed to always try to say what I mean and mean what I say. Exactly. If you grew up in a family where there were family secrets, and Kira's really having a time right now, where there were family secrets and there was, and a lot of times that can happen in a family where you have a substance abusing parent or a narcissist parent, or, you know, there's a lot of different situations in which that can happen. And it's very, very unhealthy. And a lot of us, for you probably grew up gaslighting yourself, and you probably do a lot of gaslighting of yourself now. So that's something that I want to really, the number one code of be honest with yourself. I want to encourage you to go ahead, Luna. It's okay. I want to encourage you to really take that one to heart, because that one's going to help you a lot if you're somebody who gaslights yourself. Alrighty. And then furry chairs looked at, oh my God, it's just so hot. It's also hot in my house too. I'm loving the book already, and we didn't even finish chapter 2. Yes, so absolutely. So I just want you guys to know, Laziness Does Not Exist is the book that we are currently reading in the Patreon, and we have the recordings are up, so you can go back and listen to it. It is a really great. Luna, honey, come on. Luna, come on. Come on, sweetie. Oh my God, she's just not. Okay, there we go. All right. I'm gonna wrap up this podcast now, but like I gotta just. There you go. Okay. All right. Shit. Well, my ass is sweaty now. Jesus. Okay. Laziness Does Not Exist. That's the book that we're currently reading in the podcast. I want to encourage you to get this and read it, even if you're not a member of the Patreon. If you're someone who doesn't have time for, like, you don't have time to create these habits of reading and whatnot, which no judgment at all if that's the case. Don't give yourself shit about it, okay? What I want to invite you to do instead is join the Patreon, because the way that we do it is I read half a chapter once a week, or a chapter once a week. We read for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and then we stop and we talk about it a little bit and sort of internalize and see how it impacts us. This book is just such a life changer in terms of guilt and releasing guilt. And I'm actually, I'm really excited. I want to do a podcast on this, and I'm really hoping we can get Dr. Price to come and join us. If I could get Dr. Price on my podcast, it would fucking change my life. Okay, so what I want to, my dogs are losing their shit, so I'm gonna go do that in a minute. So here's what I want to, I am so glad you love the book. I love the book club, dude. Sophia says that the book club is awesome. I love hearing how everyone has different takes on what's read. It's amazing. I thought that our conversation yesterday was so profound. It was like, we didn't finish chapter 2. We ended up going to half of chapter 2. And then one of our patrons, she had a question, and we paused, and it just became such a fabulous and robust conversation. We're like, it was just amazing. I think we all came away from it with a huge, huge development. So I want to encourage you to definitely get this book and read it. If you are looking for more development, if you want a way to be able to put self-care and mental health and this kind of thinking into place, then I want to recommend that you head over to Manessa.com and /Patreon and sign up for my Patreon. There are many different levels in there, but the whole system is designed to help you build a system in your life of self-care that works for you, because being mentally and emotionally healthy doesn't have to take all the time in the world. It doesn't have to be a full-time job. And for a lot of people, it, like, just putting the shit together to actually be mentally healthy is a lot of work. So I've done all that work for you. So head over to the Patreon, check it out. Otherwise, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast, follow me on Instagram, because you want to make sure that you get every episode of this podcast as it is released on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Next week's will also be live, and then I believe the week after that we're going to start with the pre-recorded drops. But next week we will be live. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. I am Manessa Konecki, and I got to say something at this end. I should be happy, find joy You're successful. That's true also. All these things are true. Oh my God, all these things are true. I don't have an end right now. But we're going to go with I love you. You are amazing. And don't forget, you are successful. Start practicing saying I am successful instead of I want to be. It is a complete game changer. Alrighty. Oh my God, I'm so fucking sweaty right now. Okay, so I know Sophia, you're here, and Christy is here. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I know that Danny was here earlier. Danny, are you still here? Thank you so much for joining me today. Also, if you feel like there is someone in your life that would benefit from this podcast, or that would benefit from simply just being around the stuff that I talk about, send this to them. I strongly recommend just send them the podcast. The podcast is what everybody needs to listen to. I redesigned my entire business so that that people could get the help that they needed simply from listening to the podcast. The Patreon is for anyone who wants to do it with a group, anyone who's looking for a little bit of accelerated help, anyone who wants a checklist to carry on to like keep it going. There's a lot of the Patreon will help you stay on track. It'll help you create a community, and I will be there every step of the way with you. So there's a lot of ways in which you can accelerate your growth in the Patreon, but I didn't want people to have to sign up to start to feel better. So the podcast is more than enough. So if there's any business owner in your life who you're like, oh my God, she is so despairing right now. I just wish that I could help her feel better. Send her this podcast. This will help enormously. Alrighty. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I will see you guys next week. Take care.